vision is quite big, and I don't share it alone. It's something that we are building together. And in the course of my address, I'll touch on some of the things that the people who were at GNA and who are there now have been doing, and that has taken GNA far. It could have been worse than you have now, but dedication, commitment, and people, the love, the passion for the profession made them stay to prop up GNA to where it is now. So as you were told, GNA was established on the eve of Ghana's independence. That was the 5th of March 1957, and it was part of government's comprehensive communication policy that sought to harness the information arm of the state to build a viable, united, and cohesive nation state. The agency was tasked with a unique role of mobilizing the citizens for nation building, economic and social development, national unity, and integration. And if you do a bit of history of Ghana, you realize that at the time of independence, one of the driving forces behind our first president's vision for Ghana's emancipation and that of Africa was how to tell the African story very well, because till then, and even now, there was so much reliance on what you call the multinational media establishments, the BBCs, the Reuters, the CNN, the Voice of America, and all that. And they were telling stories the way their philosophies guided them. And as somebody said, until the day the lion will learn to tell its own story, the tail of the hunt will always favor the hunter. So it's been a clarion call for African states to also own the media establishments and begin to tell their stories. They've been doing that, but it hasn't been easy. So GNA was the foremost media organization that the president sought to fight this war of changing the distorted image of Ghana and Africa. So in terms of his news operation, it was to provide for the dissemination of authentic, unbiased news about Ghana and Africa to the rest of the world. So the mission was clear for GNA: to contribute to political, social, and economic development of Ghana through gathering, processing, and disseminating of high-quality and unbiased news and information throughout Ghana, Africa, and the rest of the world. Now, the challenges that the president spoke about. For many years, GNA has continued to serve as a main source of news for the local media, including radio, television, government, private institutions, diplomatic missions, among many others. And the agency relies on its wide network of highly qualified and seasoned journalists and stringers across the country. It's not the same story that it used to be, but we still do have a wide network of very committed reporters and stringers across the country. The news gathering activity has continued to this day, even when faced with very tough challenges, such as obsolete equipment or the lack of it, loss of skilled manpower, especially editorial personnel, inadequate funding, because it's state-owned and subvented by the state, poor state of technology, and even poor state of building assets, which the president alluded to. But the problem, as the years wore on, came to the fore that GNA was heavily dependent on the state for its operations. And so therefore the fortunes of GNA were tied to the political administration at any one time in Ghana's political history. As it was set out by President Nkrumah, he had a clear vision for GNA, and it's still being rolled out. So he was passionate about GNA's operations, highly resourced GNA, highly motivated staff. And I must say this, that GNA was set up by a team of Reuters producers and managers who were commissioned to set up GNA along the lines of Reuters. And it's so impressive because they laid the groundwork to guide the agency on its path. But heavy dependence on the state meant that when Dr. Nkrumah's government was overthrown, in fact, if you read the archives of GNA, for 3 days GNA was shut down. Yes, because GNA was considered a propaganda tool of the former president or the late president, until they realized that most of the media establishments were depending on GNA for stories, so they had to reactivate the agency. So that was the issue. One major issue for GNA was that it has solely dependent on the state for funding, for its operations, and for its teeming numbers of staff. Of course, there have been donations from other agencies and individuals who expressed, the wish to support the agency. Reliance on outdated processes and technology leading to loss of competitive advantage, slow speed of transmission of stories, which is key in wire service operations, inability to attract and retain quality professionals, low morale of staff, and overaged, decrepit transport fleets. You can't run a news agency or a news organization without transport. And GNA has had that problem. Incidentally, it was in 2007 that the agency received very, very significant support from the then government of President J.A. Kufuor. At the time, as it so happens, the general manager at the time was Nana Appiah, who is now here going to give us the keynote address. And the information minister at the time was Honorable Dan Kweku Boche. And through his efforts and the president's consideration for GNA, we got about 15 or 12 pickup vehicles. 10 vehicles for all the 10 regions of Ghana, which were distributed across the country. 2007. Those vehicles are still being used by GNA. They're 12 years. And they are all in all states of all kinds of situations. Rundown, 12-year-old vehicles crisscrossing the country, some terrible terrains and all that, you can imagine. And since then, GNA has not received any such significant logistical support. And yet, the reporters, the producers, the managers have worked all these years with these same vehicles. I have traveled across the country to all the 10 regions. Accra is one region, so the 9 other regions with my finance manager. And we saw the vehicles. Some of them were in a very bad state. And some of the managers in the regions have managed using their own sources to maintain the vehicles, because head office wasn't sending money down there, because head office itself was not receiving enough budgetary support from the government. Sometimes allocations that have been earmarked to be paid to the agency would not even come. So it was always like doing magic to survive at the head office, let alone send some monies to the region. So for many years, the regional managers of GNA were fending for themselves, using all kinds of means to survive. If you didn't have enough money to maintain the vehicle, or you couldn't buy a battery to replace a spoiled one, you parked the vehicle until a time came that you could afford to buy a new battery or something. So it's been very pathetic over the years. And in spite of all that, Mr. President, the GNA has continued to stay relevant within a very competitive media space. And as Mr. President said at the GBC, we also experience the same thing. Every radio station and even every media outlet that was set up after GNA depended on GNA to start off, because you just cannot even hire trained journalists and then send them out for stories. You needed GNA files to guide you, to support you. And I have run several radio newsrooms and TV stations, and at each point, we needed to have our fax machine, we needed to subscribe to GNA stories, and they would come at regular times, 5 a.m., 8 a.m., 10, 11, 1, 2. They had times that they were sending stories to us, and you could get, the stories were such that you could use them, or you could process them further to adapt to your needs. And they were very reliable. Good stories that When you found them on your fax machine, you knew the stories were done because of the robust system that GNA has always maintained. The verification, the training for the staff, they don't just publish any story. And that's the same thing that's happening even at a weekend stage that we are witnessing now. The agency remains the only news wire service in Ghana that serves a critical mass of stakeholders. And now we have how many? About 400 radio stations. We have about 40 newspapers. We have about 40 as well TV stations. And when we get full migration on stream, we're going to have more TV stations that will need news production. We'll come to that shortly. But in spite of all these challenges and everything, the rapid technological shifts in the media environment have created new patterns of media consumption. Now we are digital space, so we see all kinds of blog sites, we see all kinds of platforms, bloggers publishing stories, search engines, crawling the online or the web space and bringing stories out. So all kinds of things are happening in the media space. So in order to expand its scope and reach to a wider audience, the GNA is now very much focused on digitalizing its operations. We are also looking at expanding our services to include audio and video content, as well as photography for our media clients and consumers. The direction of the agency within the medium term is to become more appealing to the youth, while strategically repositioning to serve as a newsroom support to other media companies. So by this we mean other media companies can outsource their newsrooms to us, and then we provide the news content, hence reducing or cutting down costs. But of course, that's an embellishment. I don't mean that do away with a newsroom, but you can have a small number of news personnel and depend on GNA because we are moving into digital space. We are moving to the place where stories can be at your fingertips as they happen wherever they are. You could have a story from Hamile, story from Chra, Brekum, and the next minute is within your reach, either in your inbox with video and audio as well. So depending on the format that you are used to, if you're a radio station or a TV station, you know what you will need. That's GNA moving into that space. Now this plan has been long on the table of GNA. This vision had been there because as a foremost media organization, you should expect that the team or the leaders at the time would think about the future direction of the media. But of course, if there was no funding, there was no way such a vision could be carried out. So it's been, as they say in the Bible, the vision has tarried for quite a while. But now we are in the position where we can activate that. Thanks also go to the present Minister of Information, Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah, who himself is a media person, and he is determined to turn the fortunes of GNA. And so we are all in sync. The board that supports me at GNA and the team of GNA personnel, they all are calling for the new direction, what we need. Some are saying, GM, we should have a radio station. I say, hey, take it easy. We're going at a good pace. Don't worry, take it easy. Some say, let's have a TV station. So let's take it. Let's have the content, production going on, and then gradually everything come on stream. So that's where we are going. And I must say that Honorable Kojo Oppong has been very, very helpful. I talked about the poor support over the years. In his time, he doubled our goods and services allocation. That is our operational fund for this year, which enabled us to start renovation works on our head office and also even to redevelop our website. A new website is going to be launched very soon with a mobile app. And his focus, which is shared by all of us, is to go digital. And it has so many advantages in the media landscape. So a time will come, we expect that TV stations, radio stations, newspaper houses will depend a lot more than they ever did on GNA stories. Because wherever they happen, we'll be there. We have the widest network. We have stringers, trained stringers, everywhere. We used to have stringers, correspondents outside Ghana, New York, London, Germany, and other places. But because of funding, lack of funding, all those bureaus were shut down. We will seek to expand the scope again. So the major plan is to invest in modern technology to improve on the agency's efficiency and quality of service to our subscribers and consumers. We anticipate to partner newsmakers and organizations to disseminate authentic and unbiased news content that shapes national discourse. Mr. President, the rise of digital media has empowered people worldwide, but also enabled the spread of disinformation, which undermines professional journalism. There is no other time than now for the GNA to play its role of ensuring a cohesive nation state, and there are several factors that play to our advantage. The nationwide network we have enabled us to accurately gather news on Ghana, to enhance regional linkages, and to contribute to economic and social development by providing a broad range of news, information, business, and communication services to Ghanaian communities home and abroad. GNA has a reliable network and remains the single largest news service provider with a reliable network to report on government development programs and provide feedback from the regions and districts far beyond the reach of other media entities. When it comes to rural news, we are there because we do have stringers. And even the charge that we have given ourselves going into next year is to make sure that every district is covered by GNA, every district, so that whatever happens there, you will get the stories. And these days of social media, you can get a snap very easily. Training our teams to do that for us and take advantage of the new technology that we are all embracing. Fake news is an issue that troubles everybody. And we have countless stories. And as I said that, some media commentators have talked about how to curb or how to check the practice of fake stories. We're going into an election year, and you can expect that all kinds of spins will be thrown out there. How do you do this? How do you check them? It's undermining professional journalism. It is. So how do we do that? GNA has the answer as well. There was a story that was published early this year, a story I chanced upon on Facebook. A gentleman had gone for blood for his mother who was a patient at a private clinic in Kumasi. And then the story that came out was that the gentleman said Confanochi had dispensed contaminated blood to him, containing HIV or something. And as you know, the story was posted on the gentleman's Facebook wall with a picture of the blood in its content. I mean, you can just fetch it from anywhere. But the story like that, when it is cast like that, everybody believes it. Because there's an image of blood, and the story says the man was given blood that had contamination. I saw the story. I contacted the editors, and I said, guys, this story can be true, but what can we do? We have the network to cross-check, to verify, and publish the truth. Very easy. We contacted the Kumasi branch. They contacted Confanochi Teaching Hospital, the CEO, promptly. They had also seen the story. In fact, the police had even alerted to the story as well. And some other media reps in Kumasi too had also seen the story. Now, to cut a long story short, the sample was retrieved from the gentleman. Further tests were conducted on the blood sample, and it was found that it was a clinic that didn't have the reagents to do proper testing, but that the blood was wholesome. And the clinic owner had to apologize. The gentleman had to withdraw the story. Now, this is an indication of what fake stories can do to a country. Confanochi is a huge institution that serves not just Ghanaians, but foreigners from across the borders. To have this story flying all over the internet, and you know how we say that everything goes viral. Bad stories sell faster than good stories. You can imagine the harm that can be done to this country and the institution as well. But this is something that GNA does all the time. Because of our robust system we have at our head office, no story passes through the desk, the home desk, without it having been checked by the editors. And if there are questions, the stories are rejected. Reporters have to go back and do the story again. So you hardly ever receive a story from GNA that contains any malicious facts that cannot be substantiated. That is the pride that we have at GNA. I thought you would clap for that because you're still doing that. You're doing that. So it's important to really champion professional journalism, and that is something that we should do as vanguards. Somebody should sit back, creatively think, have a collection of thoughts to say, how do we arrest the situation? You have all kinds of people now posing as journalists, bloggers, because it's very easy to go on the net and start blogging and pushing out stories. They listen to a radio interview, they pick a little part, and they form stories, and they're flying, causing confusion. People see it, they click on it, they read it, they believe it, they share it among themselves, WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever, and it's just poisoning minds. But there are lots of them flying around. We need a certain vanguard to check that practice, and GNA is one of them who will be leading in that direction. So at its best, independent professional journalism is essential for both the public good, politics, and private enterprise. And as it adapts to the digital media people all over the world are embracing, it can help ensure that this communications revolution results not in chaos, but in change for the better. The Ghana News Agency requires government support in terms of funding in order to make these key critical changes to its operations. Private sector partnership and engagement is also key in helping to achieve success. The agenda is to create a new business and marketing culture with the aim of overhauling the agency's revenue harnessing activities to contribute substantially to government's revenue collection. So my appeal goes to the government itself, which is doing quite well, but it can do more, corporate bodies, non-governmental organizations, and individuals who believe in a healthy, thriving media environment to support the GNA's efforts at promoting democratic development and social cohesion. Thank you.